have because our founding fathers were so brilliant with the First Amendment.
Thomas Jefferson famously said he would rather have a press without a government than a government without a press. When the press confronts the government, that means that the system is working. That's what the founders wanted.
If you don't acknowledge that fundamentally important role that the press plays and protect it, and that's the role of the press secretary sometimes, to protect the role of the press inside the White House against people who are fuming at whatever has been reported. If you don't treasure and protect that relationship, we're losing something that's very fundamentally important in our democracy.
I think one of the things that this past election has taught us is that journalists, if they follow the story and the facts and not worry about all the other stuff, maybe like what he's saying, what they're saying, I think that journalism will be resurgent, and that is a good thing for all of us.
Any president thinks that they want the American people to hear the truth about what a great job he's doing. And in theory, the press wants to report accurately and truthfully about what that president is up to. So in theory, both sides are aligned in this adversarial relationship, but we know how often things get off track.
How are your relationships with the White House press corps?
I think they're all right.
They'd like to talk to you.
Well, I answer their questions just about every day. They come in and ask me questions and I answer them.
Nixon hated a lot of things, and one of the things he really hated was the White House Correspondents' Dinner, because he would come here and he would have to sit while a lot of journalists were given big prizes for stories that were really tough on Nixon. And Nixon would go back to the White House and dictate a memo and say, I'm never going to go to this dinner ever again, but he did.
Is it credible that your personal attorney, Mr. Kalmbach...
In October of 1973, Richard Nixon had a showdown with the press in the White House, and a CBS correspondent said,
"What is it about the television coverage of you in these past weeks and months that has so aroused your anger?"
Don't get the impression that you arouse my anger. You see,
I have that impression.
You see, one can only be angry with those he respects.
That was about the nadir in the relationship between the president and the press.
Mr. President!
Tension between the president and the press is normal. It's healthy, and it's vital to democracy.
We Americans make no secret of our belief in freedom. In fact, it's something of a national pastime. About 1,000 local television stations, 8,500 radio stations, and 1,700 daily newspapers, each one an independent private enterprise, fiercely independent of the government, report on the candidates, grill them in interviews, and bring them together for debates.
The relationship between the president and the press is a unique relationship, and it's a necessary relationship. I enjoy it. I hope you do. As I say, sometimes you don't like the decisions I make, and sometimes I don't like the way you write about the decisions. But nevertheless, it's a really important part of our process.
But I have enjoyed working with all of you. That does not, of course, mean that I've enjoyed every story that you have filed, but that's the point of this relationship. You're not supposed to be sycophants, you're supposed to be skeptics, you're supposed to ask me tough questions. You're not supposed to be complimentary, but you're supposed to cast a critical eye on folks who hold enormous power and make sure that we are accountable to the people who sent us here. And you have done that. So America needs you and our democracy needs you.
The White House Correspondents Association doesn't just wrangle with presidents and their aides. We also provide scholarships to young journalists who represent the next generation of our profession.
My name is Angel Brock. I am a 2016 Penn State graduate from the College of Communications. The tuition is very, very high. My mom was saying, Penn State's a great school, but I don't know if we can afford it. It was nearly $30,000 in scholarships from WHCA, and I was in shock. That was actually a big portion of my tuition. I ended up being awarded the scholarships, and I was completely humbled by the experience. I was just like, wow, I mean, you chose me. 5, 4, 3, 2. And that just gave me the drive and the push to keep pushing to find a job in the field that I wanted. I'm just thankful because ABC7 WJLA hired me as a production assistant. So I do a lot of writing, graphics, floor directing, and it's the first step into my career. So I'm just gonna go up from here.
You're gonna do healthcare and tax
It'll
reform?
happen. We'll see what happens.
The WHCA fights hard every day for the ability of journalists to ask questions, to witness the president in action, and to report robustly on what they see. We will continue to do that, regardless of who is in office and regardless of which party controls the White House. That's our job.
Yes, there can be spin. Yes, there can be a little give and take in the briefing room, but at the end of the day, it's about the American people. They need to hear honestly what's going on.
So every time someone complains about conflict between the White House and the press, we should say that's democracy and we should be grateful.
There are changes that are coming that we don't even know about. But here's one thing that doesn't change. Facts, the First Amendment, truth, respect, and civility. All of those things are constants that we should be able to agree on.
That's a keeper.
Thank you to WHCA board member Alicia Jennings and her team at NBC for putting together that terrific video. The tradition of the White House Correspondents' Dinner is a long one. Journalists, presidents, cabinet members, lawmakers, and diplomats have shown up for decades and demonstrated that even though we have vastly different roles, government officials and reporters can come together for one night. Tonight looks a little different, but the values that underpin this dinner have not changed. In fact, I think they've been reinforced. We are here to celebrate good journalism. We are here to celebrate the press, not the presidency. And I am happy to report, for anyone who's interested, that this dinner is sold out. But what we celebrate tonight is bigger than a dinner. This may get a lot of attention every year, but the work journalists do every day is what is important. And as people in this room know, but perhaps some in the American public do not, the White House Correspondents Association works every day to stand up for freedom, for press freedom, and advocate for journalists' ability to do their jobs. We do that with every White House, regardless of who's president and regardless of whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. President Trump's White House is no different. We have worked very hard to build a constructive relationship with his press team, and there are clear dividends from those efforts. The press is still in the White House briefing room, and we are still on Air Force One. In fact, press access under President Trump has been very good. With all of the tension in the relationship, that aspect is often overlooked. We have had several press conferences, repeated opportunities to see and report on the president's meetings, and, with at least one notable and lamentable exception, good access to briefings with press staff and senior administration officials. Nevertheless, we cannot ignore the rhetoric that has been employed by the president about who we are and what we do. Freedom of the press is a building block of our democracy. Undermining that by seeking to delegitimize journalists is dangerous to a healthy republic. It is our job to report on facts and to hold leaders accountable. That is who we are. We are not fake news. We are not failing news organizations. And we are not the enemy of the American people. The WHCA is proud to stand up for all of our members. An attack on any of us is an attack on all of us. At previous dinners, we have rightly talked about the threats to press freedoms abroad. Tonight, we must recognize that there are threats to press freedoms here in the United States. We must remain vigilant. The world is watching. Thankfully, we are not alone. The outpouring of support for the WHCA has been heartwarming. And having journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein here tonight is an outstanding symbol of that support. Thank you, Bob, Carl, Elsa, and Christine for joining us. Just as Woodward and Bernstein inspired generations of journalists, we hope the work the White House Press Corps is doing will inspire our successors. And we are delighted to support the next generation of journalists with our scholarship program, which we are raising money for tonight. As the video so beautifully showed, scholarships matter. And having spent some time already with this year's group of scholars, I can tell you the future of our profession is in good hands. And with that, I'd like to invite scholarship chairs Julie Pace and Zeke Miller to the podium as we present to you this year's WHCA Scholars.
Before Zeke and I introduce you to our scholars this year, we just want to also say that on behalf of the entire board, we are so honored to be able to serve alongside Jeff Mason, who has led our board with such dedication this year. This year, the White House Correspondents Association is pleased to award scholarships to 23 students from 8 universities. Thanks to the generous contributions of journalists in this room, each of these scholars will be working alongside a mentor from the White House Press Corps for the coming year. We're excited to introduce the scholars to you now and ask that you will hold your applause until they've all been introduced. From Howard University, Anthony Brown Jr., the McAlpin Scholar. Beryl Kessio. Meridi Nazaga. From Columbia University, Riham Al-Kusa. From Northwestern University, Alejandro Ortiz, who was unable to attend tonight. Nia Prater, a Deborah Oren Scholarship Award winner. Mariam Saleh, a Deborah Oren Scholarship winner. From UC Berkeley, Susan Morar. From the University of Maryland, Becca King.
From the University of Missouri, Adam Aiden. Jinhong Cheng, Brittany Crocker, Ye Han, Kasha Kovac, Molly Olmsted, Jill Ornitz, Kuichi Shirayanagi, Francisco Vara Orta, Sheila Wang. From George Washington University, Teniola Ayomide Ayola. From Ohio University, Megan Henry, Marisa Fernandez, and Catherine Hofacker. Please join us in congratulating all of this year's scholarship winners.
Thank you, Julie and Zeke, and congratulations again to our 2017 winners. It is heartening to know that such a terrific class of journalists is coming up in the ranks. Speaking of which, they are not the only young journalists in the room tonight who are already making an impact. We are delighted that there are so many students here, including those hosted by CNN and Yahoo News. But I'd like to highlight a special group of students hosted by the Huffington Post. Earlier this year at Pittsburgh High School in Kansas, this group of students was doing research on the school's newly hired principal when they uncovered some red flags about her educational and professional background. Their tenacious work for a student newspaper, the Booster Redux, led to the resignation of that school official. Congratulations. Please stand so we can recognize you. Journalists, like those students, witness and sometimes impact history with the work that they do. And that is certainly the same for those of us in the White House Press Corps. One way we record that history is through pool reports, written by dedicated print journalists. And tonight we're excited to give an update on the WHCA's work to create an archive for those reports. And I'd like to introduce Vice President Margaret Talev, who has spearheaded this project with Major Garrett of CBS, to tell us more.
Subject, White House Travel Pool Report number 1, Joint Base Andrews, April 29th, 2017. Greetings from a steamy tarmac in suburban Maryland, where President Trump sets off on a Saturday night visit to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to celebrate 100 days in office. One day, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, when somebody wants to go back and figure out what President Trump was doing on his first 100 days in office and what they served for the meal on Air Force One and who was on him on the with him on the plane, Steve Bannon, Steve Miller, Reince Priebus, Hope Hicks, also on board Kellyanne Conway, they will go back and read Mark Landler of the New York Times Pool Report filed at 5:20 p.m. when they were rolling for Harrisburg on the tarmac. A couple years ago, as we were covering President Obama, we realized there was really no way to figure out what was that woman's name in that diner who told him that thing that time, or, that sort of thing. And look, pool reports run from what was President Bush doing in those hours after the 9/11 attacks to Obama's election night, Trump's election night, everything in between. Major and I and the board hope very soon to be able to announce a university partner and the next steps on this project. But in the meantime, we just want everyone to know that we are undertaking an effort to create a searchable, permanent, ongoing future database that will record this little bit of history, which is not part of the archives on a running basis now, so that scholars and the public and journalists can, with a couple of keystrokes, command that attention and that detail that is such a special part of what happens at the White House and the presidency every day. So with your support and your patience, we look very much forward to having an update from you soon, but this will be a major project available to everyone in this room and everyone in the country who wants to glean access to this information as a part of history. So thank you very much for your support. We'll have an update soon.
Thank you, Margaret. Margaret will succeed me as president in July, and she's going to do a terrific job. We've spoken a lot about the First Amendment tonight, and I'd like to take just a second now to read its text. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That great amendment protects so many things that are part of U.S. democracy. It protects our ability to write and report, and it protects others' ability to criticize, praise, or make fun. I'm thinking of satire, and we now have a special message of support from someone who engages in satire and wants to share it with the journalists in this room.
And live from New York, it's Hey, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Alec Baldwin, for those quick but meaningful words of encouragement. The next portion of our program is a bit of a surprise, too. But not for those of us sitting on the dais. It's for the person helping to make the program run flawlessly backstage. Julia Whiston, our executive director, has supported this association with heart and soul and guts for more than 20 years. She has made planning a dinner for presidents, journalists, and thousands of guests in Washington look effortless. And she has supported the principles of the First Amendment by keeping the trains of our association running on time. This will be the last dinner that she will oversee as our executive director before she retires next month. So I'd like to invite her on stage as we salute her now with this video. This dinner would not happen without Julie Whiston, period. We would not get the work done that we need to get done without Julie Whiston, period. And it wouldn't be as fun without Julie Whiston.
Julia Whiston got all of us here together, and that's quite a feat.
Julie is truly irreplaceable, and not only we want to thank her, but also every president from Bill Clinton to Barack Obama.
Julie Whiston is incredibly grounded, kind, and generous.
Kind, generous, and capable beyond belief.
Smart, tough, and indispensable.
And no matter how hot things get, I've never seen her break out in a sweat.
Julie Whiston brought this organization into the modern era, and we're all very thankful, and we always will be.
She is one classy lady.
Elegant and unflappable.
Julia Whiston is family. In her quarter century with us, we rejoiced in her marriage, we mourned when she mourned, and most importantly, we celebrated every year watching her daughters grow into great women. Thank you, Julie, for letting us be part of your family.
Julie Whiston has been the heart and soul of this organization, and she bailed me out quietly more times than I can count.
She's a vault, and she's incredibly loyal.
Fiercely committed to journalists.
To me, Julie Whiston is an unsung hero of the First Amendment.
Julia is the kind of person who knows what you need before you even know what you need.
Julie Whiston is a friend, now and forever.
It's Julie's dinner. The rest of us are just her guests.
Julie Whiston is an impossibly hard act to follow.
I think Julie is White House Correspondents' Dinner in itself. If you were to say White House Correspondents' Dinner, who does it remind you of? Julie Whiston.
She's always striving for something special each year.
There's not a lot of people in this business that you honestly look at and you say, you know what, I'm going to miss that customer, or I'm going to miss that individual. Julie's somebody that I will truly miss.
Congratulations, Julie.
We are so grateful. Congratulations, Julie.
Congratulations, Julie. Congratulations, Julie.
Congratulations, Julie.
Thank you. That's so sweet of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Can I go now?
Nope. Julie did not know about that video, and keeping that a secret may rank up there as one of our proudest accomplishments tonight. I'd like to welcome Julie's great family, her husband Dave, who has also been a great supporter of the WHCA, to join us here. Julie, on behalf of all the journalists that you have supported over all these years, thank you, happy birthday, and we will miss you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Oh my God. I feel like Miss America now. Thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a privilege to work with so many wonderful people, and I'll miss you all. Thank you.
We are lucky to have people like Julie and so many strong supporters who make the work of the WHCA possible, starting with the board members on this stage. These are the elected representatives of the White House Press Corps, and they work day in and day out to make sure reporters can get into briefings, still photographers have space to take pictures, video journalists can run video on news events, and radio reporters can get the sound they need for airtime. Thank you, board members. John, Alicia, Doug, Zeke, Julie, Todd, Olivier, and Margaret. I'd like to give a special shout out to Olivier and Margaret, who helped me lead the process of choosing a new executive director. And we are delighted that Steve Thoma, who you just saw with the flowers for Julie, will be filling that role. Next, I'd like to thank George Lehner, our terrific attorney who donates his and his firm's time and resources to the cause of protecting journalism. I will never forget a day early in the presidential transition last year when we had pushback about having journalists in the lobby of Trump Tower in New York. I called George, who immediately mobilized colleagues to go to the scene to advocate for our rights to be there. It was real advocacy in motion, and it made a difference. Thank you, George. Thank you, too, to the journalism groups who have been part of the fight for press freedoms and who are present in support of the WHCA tonight, including representatives from Reporters Without Borders, the Committee to Protect Journalists, the National Press Club, and the Washington Press Club Foundation. I'd also like to offer a personal thank you to those in this room who have been so supportive of me this year, especially my family and dear friends who are joining me tonight. I'd like to thank Thomson Reuters for giving me the opportunities it has. And lastly, I'd like to thank the members of the White House Press Corps. It is a privilege to work with each and every one of you every day. Thank you for having my back and the back of the WHCA board. This is your dinner. This is our dinner. Will all of the White House reporters in the room please stand and be recognized? And that brings me to the toast. Tonight, we salute White House reporters. Please raise a glass to them, to freedom of the press, and to journalists here and around the world. Hear, hear. The next speakers really need no introduction. Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein changed the course of history with their reporting on Watergate. Their work led scores of journalists to enter our profession, and it continues to serve as a shining example of the importance of strong reporting and holding leaders at the highest levels of government accountable. It is a true honor to have them here, and I'd like to invite them to the podium now to speak and to present our Journalism Awards.
Thank you. Shortly after Richard Nixon resigned the presidency, Bob and I were asked a long question about reporting. We answered with a short phrase that we've used many times since to describe our reporting on Watergate and its purpose and methodology. We called it the best obtainable version of the truth. The best obtainable version of the truth. It's a simple concept, yet something very difficult to get right because of the enormous amount of effort, thinking, persistence, pushback, removal of ideological baggage, and for sure luck that is required, not to mention some unnatural humility. Underlying everything reporters do in pursuit of the best obtainable version of the truth, whatever our beat or assignment, is the question, what is news? What is it that we believe is important, relevant, hidden perhaps, or even in plain sight and ignored by conventional journalistic wisdom or governmental wisdom? I'd say this question of what is news becomes even more relevant and essential if we are covering the President of the United States. Richard Nixon tried to make the conduct of the press the issue in Watergate instead of the conduct of the President and his men. We tried to avoid the noise and let the reporting speak. During our coverage of Watergate and since, Bob and I have learned a lot from one another about the business of being reporters. Let me list here a few of the primary elements of Bernstein's reportorial education from Woodward. 1, almost inevitably, unreasonable government secrecy is the enemy, and usually the giveaway about what the real story might be. And when lying is combined with secrecy, there is usually a pretty good roadmap in front of us. Yes, follow the money, but follow also the lies. Two, sources are human beings whom we need to listen to and empathize with and understand, and not objectify simply as the means to get a story. We need to go back to our sources time and again, over and over. The best obtainable version of the truth is about context and nuance, even more than it's about simple existential facts. The development and help of Deep Throat, Mark Felt as a source, was a deeply human enterprise. When we were working on our second book, The Final Days, Woodward did 17 interviews with Richard Nixon's White House lawyer. Sustained inquiry is essential. You never know what the real story is until you've done the reporting, as Woodward says, exhaustively, gone back over and over to our sources, asked ourselves in them, what's missing? What's the further explanation? What are the details? What do they think it means? Our assumption of the big picture isn't enough. Our preconceived notions of where the story might go are almost always different than where the story comes out when we've done the reporting. I know of no important story that I've worked on in more than half a century of reporting that ended up where I thought it would go when I started on it. The people with the information we want should not be pigeonholed or prejudged by their ideology or their politics. Almost all of our sources in Watergate were people who had, at one time or another, been committed to Richard Nixon and his presidency. Incremental reporting is essential. We wrote more than 200 stories in Watergate. Whenever I'd say, let's go for the big picture, the whole enchilada or whatever, Bob would say, here's what we know now and are ready to put in the paper. And then inevitably, one story led to another, and the larger tale expanded because of this repertorial dynamic. The best obtainable version of the truth became repeatedly clearer, more developed, and understandable. We're reporters, not judges, not legislators. What the government or citizens or judges do with the information we've developed is not our part of the process, nor our objective. Our job is to put the best obtainable version of the truth out there, period, especially now.
Thank you. I am honored to be standing here with Carl, who has, over the decades, taught me so much about journalism. As he says, reporting is about human connections, finding the people who know what is hidden, and establishing relationships of trust. That was the first lesson from Carl in 1972. He obtained a list of people who worked at Nixon's re-election campaign committee. Not surprisingly, from a former girlfriend. He's finally embarrassed. No one would talk. Carl said, here's what we have to do. Launching a system of going to the homes of people, knocking on doors when we had no appointment. We later wrote, the nighttime visits were frankly fishing expeditions. The trick was getting inside someone's apartment or house. Bits and pieces came. We saw fear at times. We heard about document destruction, a massive house cleaning at the Nixon Reelection Committee, a money trail, an organized, well-funded cover-up. Clark McGregor, then the Nixon campaign manager, called Ben Bradley, the editor of the Washington Post, to complain. McGregor reported, "They knocked on doors late at night and telephoned from the lobby. They hounded 5 women." Bradley's response, "That's the nicest thing I've heard about them in years." And he meant maybe ever. In 1973, I recall standing on Pennsylvania Avenue with Carl after a court hearing. We watched 3 of the Watergate burglars and their lawyer filling a cab, front and back seats. Carl was desperate that he would lose them in this opportunity. He was short on cash and didn't know where he might be going. I gave Carl $20. There was no room in the cab, but Carl, uninvited, got in anyway, piling in on top of these people as the door slammed. He ended up flying with the lawyer to New York City and came back with another piece of the puzzle. I never got my $20. The point, very aggressive reporting is often necessary. Bradley and the editors of the Washington Post gave us the precious luxury of time to pursue all leads, all people who might know something, even something small. Now, in 2017, the impatience and speed of the internet and our own rush can disable and undermine the most important tool of journalism. That method, that luxury of time to inquire, to pursue, to find the real agents of genuine news, witnesses, participants, documents, to dive into the cab. Any president and his administration in Washington is clearly entitled to the most serious reporting efforts possible. We need to understand, to listen, to dig. Obviously, our reporting needs to get both facts and tone right. The press, especially the so-called mainstream media, comes under regular attack, particularly during presidential campaigns like this one and its aftermath. Like politicians and presidents, sometimes, perhaps too frequently, we make mistakes and go too far. When that happens, we should own up to it. But the effort today to get this best obtainable version of the truth is largely made in good faith. Mr. President, the media is not fake news. Let's take that off the table as we proceed. As Marty Barron, the executive editor of the Post, said in recent speeches, reporters should display modesty and humility, bending over backwards and sincerely, not only to be fair, but to demonstrate to people we cover that we intend and will be fair. In other words, that we have an obligation to listen. At the same time, Marty said, quote, "When we have done our job thoroughly, We have a duty to tell people what we've learned and to tell it to them forthrightly without masking our findings or muddling them. Journalists should not have a dog in the political fight except to find that best obtainable version of the truth. The indispensable centrality of fact-based reporting is careful, scrupulous listening, and an open mind. President Nixon once said the problem with journalists is that they look in the mirror when they should be looking out the window. That is certainly one thing Nixon said that Carl and I agree with. Whatever the climate, whether the media is revered or reviled, we should and must persist. And I believe we will. We also need to face the reality that polling numbers show that most Americans disapprove of and distrust the media. This is no time for self-satisfaction or smugness. But as Ben Bradley said in 1997, 20 years ago, quote, "The more aggressive our search for truth, the more some people are offended by the press. So be it." Ben continued. Ben continued, "I take great strength knowing that in my experience the truth does emerge. It takes forever sometimes, but it does emerge, and that any relaxation by the press will be extremely costly to democracy." Carl and I are grandfathers, perhaps great-grandfathers in American journalism, but we can see that the three journalists that we are recognizing tonight are some of the finest examples of that craft of persistence. Thank you. So we're going to give out these awards, and they're cash awards, but I understand that the cash is redeemable for shares in Amazon, which may be a better investment. Where are the winners? Oh, they're ready. Okay, thank you. The Aldo Beckman Award goes to Greg Jaffe of the Washington Post. Great, thank you. Good. It is for his coverage of the last days of the Obama presidency. The contrast which he demonstrated between the realities of 2016 and the hopes of 2008. And he examined quite brilliantly the political divisions in the Obama years. The Merriman Smith Memorial Award goes to Edward Isaac Dover of Politico. Nicely done. This is an award for his deadline coverage of the meeting between President Obama and Cuban President Raul Castro. and it demonstrated, and I think he did the story 90 minutes after this happened, and it showed the importance of having reporters on the ground who actually knew what was going on.
Finally, the Edgar A. Poe Award goes to David Farenthold of the Washington Post. And as many in this room know, David is being honored for his comprehensive investigation of candidate Donald Trump's charitable giving and the real numbers. Congratulations, David.
Thank you, Bob and Carl, and congratulations, award winners. A special thank you as well to our judges this year who were coordinated by Ellen Shearer of the Medill School of Journalism. It is now time to get to the entertainment portion of our program. And I couldn't be more pleased to introduce Hasan Minhaj. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Hasan over the course of the last few weeks, and I'm psyched to say he is keenly interested in what we do and the causes we fight for. Hasan is a senior correspondent on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah on Comedy Central, and his one-man show, Homecoming King, will debut on Netflix on May 23rd. Ladies and gentlemen, Hasan Minhaj.
Thank you. Wow. Oh, my God. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the series finale of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Oh, man. My name is Hasan Minhaj, or as I'll be known in a few weeks, number 830287. Who would have thought, with everything going on in the country right now, that a Muslim would be standing on this stage for the 9th year in a row, baby? We had 8 years of Barack. What's another year? I see you, fam. I see you, Barry. What you doing right now? You jet skiing while the world burns? That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. For those of you who don't know me, I am a correspondent on The Daily Show on Comedy Central. Now, I see some of you whispering to each other, what is Comedy Central? It's basically an internship for Netflix. I'd like to thank Jeff Mason and the White House Correspondents Association for having me. I would say it is an honor to be here, but that would be an alternative fact. It is not. No one wanted to do this. So, of course, it lands in the hands of an immigrant. It's how it always goes down. No one wanted this gig. No one. Don Rickles died just so you wouldn't ask him to do this gig, all right? R.I.P. to Don Rickles, the only Donald with skin thick enough to take a joke like that. R.I.P. to the legend. I'm sorry. That's my only Trump joke. I was explicitly told not to go after the administration. I promise you, that's my only Trump joke.
You were not told that.
Believe me. It is amazing to be surrounded by some of the greatest journalists in the world. And yet, when we all checked into the Hilton on Friday, we all got a USA Today. Every time a USA Today slides underneath my door, it's like they're saying, hey, you're not that smart, right? USA Today is what happens when the coupon section takes over the newspaper. Like, is this an article about global warming or 50 cents off Tide? Either way, the pictures are so pretty. Tonight is about defending the First Amendment and the free press, and I am truly honored to be here, even though all of Hollywood pulled out now that King Joffrey is president and it feels like the Red Wedding in here. For the record, the WHCA is a group of journalists who cover the White House. They are not King Joffrey's goons, so I'm so glad you guys are all here tonight to honor a great American tradition, because we all know this administration loves deleting history faster than Anthony Weiner when he hears footsteps. So thank you for being here. Okay, listen, I get it. We gotta address the elephant that's not in the room. The leader of our country is not here. And that's because he lives in Moscow. It is a very long flight. It'd be hard for Vlad to make it. Vlad can't just make it on a Saturday. It's a Saturday. As for the other guy, I think he's in Pennsylvania because he can't take a joke. Now, for the 9 people watching on C-SPAN, there also was another elephant in the room, but Donald Trump Jr. shot it and cut off its tail. You know, a lot of people told me, Hasan, if you go after the administration, it would be petty, unfair, and childish. In other words, presidential. So here we go. I get why Donald Trump didn't want to be roasted tonight. By the looks of him, he's been roasting nonstop for the past 70 years. Historically, the president usually performs at the Correspondents' dinner, but I think I speak for all of us when I say he's done far too much bombing this month. Now, a lot of people in the media say that Donald Trump goes golfing too much. You guys are always like, he goes golfing too much, which raises a very important question. Why do you care? Do you want to know what he's not doing when he's golfing? Being president. Let the man putt-putt. Keep him distracted. Teach him how to play badminton. Tell him he has a great body for bobsledding. Play him tic-tac-toe. The longer you keep him distracted, the longer we're not at war with North Korea. Every time Donald Trump goes golfing, the headline should read, Trump golfing, apocalypse delayed, take the W. This is great. I love this. Even if you guys groan, I've already hired Kellyanne Conway. She's gonna go on TV on Monday and tell everybody I killed. So it really doesn't matter. But I love that everybody's drinking, having a good time. This is beautiful. You know Donald Trump doesn't drink, right? Does not touch alcohol, which is oddly respectable. But think about that. That means every statement, every interview, every tweet, completely sober. How is that possible? We've all had that excuse, haven't we? Be like, I said what? No, listen, babe, I swear to you, I was hammered. That's not who I really am. What does Donald Trump tell Melania? Listen, babe, last year on that bus with Billy Bush, that's exactly who I am. He tweets at 3 a.m. sober. Who is tweeting at 3 a.m. sober? Donald Trump, because it's 10 a.m. in Russia. Those are business hours. You know, now that a professional wrestler is our president, anything is possible. You know that statement, anything is possible, used to have a positive connotation? Anything is possible. Now we're all like, anything is possible. Anything. The news coming out of the White House is so stressful, I've been watching House of Cards just to relax. I'm just like, oh man, a congressman pushed a journalist in front of a moving train? That's quaint. Now, it's not just the president who decided not to show up. His entire administration is not here. Betsy DeVos couldn't be here. She's busy curating her collection of children's tears. Now, a lot of people think Betsy DeVos is out of touch with working class America, but you listen to me and you listen to me right now, okay? Every morning, Betsy DeVos is up at 5 a.m. putting her children on their flight to school. So don't you tell me she's out of touch, okay? Hey, has anyone seen Rick Perry since he became Energy Secretary? I have a feeling he's sitting in a room full of plutonium waiting to become Spider-Man. That's just my hunch. Now, a lot of people think Steve Bannon is the reason Donald Trump dog whistles to racists. And that is just not true. Ask Steve Bannon. Is Steve Bannon here? I do not see Steve Bannon. I do not see Steve Bannon. Not see Steve Bannon. Not see Steve Bannon. Not see Steve Bannon. Frederick Douglass isn't here, and that's because he's dead. Someone please tell the president. Mike Pence wanted to be here tonight, but his wife wouldn't let him because apparently one of you ladies is ovulating. So, good job, ladies. Because of you, we couldn't hang out with Mike Pence. Now, Ivanka Trump isn't here either, and I wish she was. Because if she was here, I would ask her the question that we're all thinking. Why? Why do you support this man? Because I get it. We all love our parents, but we wouldn't endorse them for president. Like if someone's like, hey, Hasan, should your dad be president of the United States? I'd be like, my dad? Najmi Minhaj? The guy who tries to return used underwear to Costco? No! Jeff Sessions couldn't be here tonight. He was busy doing a pre-Civil War reenactment. On his RSVP, he just wrote no, just no, which happens to be his second favorite N-word. You know, even Hillary Clinton couldn't be here tonight. Hillary Clinton she could have been here, but I think someone told her that the event was in Wisconsin and Michigan, so. What? What? You guys. You know, Nate Silver told me that joke would kill. Nate Silver told me there was a 74.1% chance of that joke killing. I believed you, Nate. Did you hear that groan, Nate? Can't believe I believed you, man. Okay, enough about House Slytherin. We are here to talk about the truth. It is 2017, and we are living in the golden age of lying. Now's the time to be a liar, and Donald Trump is liar in chief. And remember, you guys are public enemy number one. You are his biggest enemy. Journalists, ISIS, normal length ties. And somehow, you're the bad guys. That's why you gotta keep your foot on the gas, especially with Sean Spicer, who is not here tonight because I think he's at home Googling how to fake his own death. But I love it when you give it to Sean Spicer. Sean Spicer gives press briefings like someone is going through his browser history while he watches. Just panic, like, no, wait, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop shaking your head, stop shaking your head, stop shaking your head. We'll talk about this tomorrow. It is the best. Now, you guys are laughing, but realize Sean Spicer's been doing PR since 1999. He has been doing his job for 18 years, and somehow, after 18 years, his go-to move when you ask him a tough question is denying the Holocaust. That is insane. How many people do you know that can turn a press briefing into a full-on Mel Gibson traffic stop? Only the Spice Man. Only the Spice Man. You know what's crazy? Every day on The Daily Show, we do these jokes all the time. We're like, the administration lies, Trump flip-flops. It doesn't matter. His supporters still trust him. It has not stopped his momentum at all. It's almost as if The Daily Show should be on C-SPAN. It has left zero impact. It's true. And I realized something. Maybe it's because we're living in this strange time where trust is more important than truth. And supporters of President Trump trust him. And I know journalists, you guys are definitely trying to do good work. I just think that a lot of people don't trust you right now. And can you blame them? I mean, unlike Anderson Cooper's bone structure, you guys have been far from perfect. Remember election night? I mean, that was your Steve Harvey Miss Universe moment. The look on your faces at 11 p.m. on election night, it was like walking into a Panera Bread and finding out your 6th grade teacher has a part-time job there. I was like, what? Mr. Leddington? I guess you don't have all the answers. Because it was all fun and games with Obama, right? You were covering an adult who could speak English, and now you're covering President Trump, so you got to take your game to a whole new level. It's like if a bunch of stripper cops had to solve a real-life murder. Fox News is here. I'm amazed you guys even showed up. How are you here in public? It's hard to trust you guys when you backed a man like Bill O'Reilly for years, but it finally happened. Bill O'Reilly has been fired. But then you gave him a $25 million severance package, making it the only package he won't force a woman to touch. Now, in O'Reilly's defense, he was told by a close friend, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. You guys are having a hard time with Jesse Waters right now, too. He's on a break right now, right? He's on a break. Just like my childhood dog is staying at a farm upstate. I get it. I know that move. Now, I know some of you are wondering, Hasan, how do you know so much about Fox News? Well, as a Muslim, I like to watch Fox News for the same reason I like to play Call of Duty. Sometimes, I like to turn my brain off and watch strangers insult my family and heritage. MSNBC is here tonight, and I'm glad you guys are here tonight. That way, if I'm bombing, Brian Williams will describe it as stunning. MSNBC, it's hard to trust you guys when you send us so many mixed messages. On one hand, you tell us the prison industrial complex is the problem, and then you air 5 straight hours of lockup. You can't be mad at corporations profiting off of minorities in prison when you're a corporation profiting off of minorities in prison. It's like, I have one quick request. MSNBC, please tell Rachel Maddow to chill about Trump's tax returns. I don't know what you think you'll find in there, but there isn't going to be a line item that just says bribes from Russia. That's not how it works. You're going to be like, oh, I found the 1040 USSR. It doesn't work like that. You're the liberal news outlet. Like, we dress the same. I look like a melanin version of Chris Hayes. I want to root for you guys, but you're turning into conspiracy theorists every night. You're like, the Russians hacked our elections. The Russians hacked our elections. Meanwhile, everybody in Latin America and the Middle East is like, oh, a foreign government tampered with your elections? What is that like? Do tell, MSNBC. Just pump the brakes. We're only on day 100. By the end of the year, you guys all gonna have tinfoil hats and jars of urine all over your desks. Now, I had a lot more MSNBC jokes, but I don't want to just ramble on, otherwise I might get a show on MSNBC. Last but not least, my favorite entertainment channel is in the building tonight. CNN is here, baby. Now, you guys got some really weird trust issues going on with the public. I'm not gonna call you fake news, but everything isn't breaking news. You can't go to DEF CON 1 just because Sanjay Gupta found a new moisturizer. Every time a story breaks, you guys go to 9 screens, 9 boxes on the screen. I'm trying to watch the news, not pick a player in Street Fighter. It's giving me anxiety. If you have 9 experts on a panel, what is your barrier of entry? Here to talk about transportation infrastructure is my Uber driver, Gary. Gary, what do you got? It just says Gary, 4.8 stars. He's like, I don't know, I got a mint. Thanks, Gary. Let's go to the countdown clock, to the next countdown clock. All you guys do is stoke up conflict. Don, every time I watch your show, it feels like I'm watching a reality TV show. CNN Tonight should just be called, wait a second, now hold on, stop yelling at each other with Don Lemon. You know your news, right? Come on. But every time I watch CNN, it feels like you're assigning me homework. Is Trump a Russian spy? I don't know. You tell me. Tweet us at AC360. No, you tell me. I'm watching the news. But it feels like I'm watching CNN watch the news. Please, just take an hour. Figure out what you want to say, then go on the air. But whenever I turn you guys on, it feels like a little kid just ran into the room and is trying to tell you a story. You're just like, there's a wall. It's a 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion. Paul Ryan. Breathe. Take a minute. Drink some milk. Then tell us the story, Wolf. I know I'm busting balls. I don't have a solution on how to win back trust. I don't. But in the age of Trump, I know that you guys have to be more perfect now more than ever. Because you are how the president gets his news. Not from advisors, not from experts, not from intelligence agencies, you guys. So that's why you gotta be on your A game. You gotta be twice as good. You can't make any mistakes. Because when one of you messes up, he blames your entire group. And now you know what it feels like to be a minority. And I can see some of you guys complaining, like, what? I gotta work twice as hard for half the credit? Remember, you're a minority. You guys got a lot more experience than me, but I got 3 decades of being brown. So if you want to survive the age of Trump, you gotta think like a minority. And now that you're a minority, oh man, everyone is gonna expect you to be the mouthpiece for the entire group. So I hate to say it, but somewhere right now, all of you are being represented by Geraldo Rivera. See, now that you're a truly minority, there's a distorted version of you out there. You know, Taco Bell for Mexican culture, Panda Express for Chinese culture, Huffington Post for journalism. And then, when you actually manage to do great work, you get hit with the most condescending line in the English language. Hey, you're actually one of the good ones. Then you have to smile and say thank you. Kind of sucks, doesn't it? By the way, you guys aren't really minorities, you guys are super white. But I can see MSNBC being like, we got our minority card. No. But your work is invaluable. And I mean that as a fake journalist. I am rooting for you. We're 100 days in, 1,360 days to go. You guys are running the marathon, and I'm at the half-mile mark giving you tape for your nipples. So I'm wishing you nothing but the best. You chafed, Van? You look chafed? It's a long way to go. This has been one of the strangest events I have ever done in my life. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I feel like I'm a tribute in the Hunger Games. Like, if this goes poorly, Steve Bannon gets to eat me, but... I was asked to not roast the president and the administration in their absentia. And I completely understand that. We are in a very strange situation where there's a very combative relationship between the press and the president. But now that you guys are minorities, just for this moment, you might understand the position I was in. And it's the same position a lot of minority kids feel in this country. And it's, you know, do I come up here and just try to fit in and not ruffle any feathers? Or do I say how I really feel? Because this event is about celebrating the First Amendment and free speech. Free speech is the foundation of an open and liberal democracy. From college campuses to the White House. Only in America can a first-generation Indian American Muslim kid get on this stage and make fun of the president. The orange man behind the Muslim band. And it's a sign to the rest of the world. It's this amazing tradition that shows the entire world that even the president is not beyond the reach of the First Amendment. But the president didn't show up because Donald Trump doesn't care about free speech. The man who tweets everything that enters his head refuses to acknowledge the amendment that allows him to do it. Think about it. It's almost, what is it, 11? It's 11 p.m. right now. In 4 hours, Donald Trump will be tweeting about how bad Nicki Minaj bombed at this dinner. And he'll be doing it completely sober. And that's his right. And I'm proud that all of us are here tonight to defend that right, even if the man in the White House never would. So I'd like to thank the White House Correspondents Association for having me here. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Woodward and Bernstein for inspiring a generation of journalists. And I would like to thank Donald Trump for inspiring the next. Thank you so much. It's been an honor. Good night. I love you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And that concludes our evening. We hope you enjoyed the program and the food, especially the snickerdoodles on the dessert plate. Thanks to Hasan, Bob, Carl, and the Hilton staff. Thank you all for coming, and have a great evening.